pulled this issue, we are given a recommendation as to the board salary, and in previous years, the board has always agreed to freeze the salary of the school board members at the same level as a beginning teacher. My concern with that is this year we gave beginning teachers a pretty hefty raise. And it just doesn't sit well with me that there is the potential for it to be construed as we gave teachers a healthy raise and we are benefiting from our decision to give those teachers a healthy raise. The amount that's being put forth in the recommendation on this item is $740 less than the recommendation coming from Tallahassee, which I feel better about than the recommendation that Tallahassee is putting forth. But I still have a level of discomfort with us raising the board salary at the same level that we raised the entry-level teacher salary. It just doesn't feel right to me.
And if you want to base it on something that is not tied to anything, it would be what every other constitutional officer does, which is the $39,966, which is what the state levels. I'm the one that I'm the one that started the whole thing years ago on the first-year teacher because I want it tied to something. I never felt comfortable making more than a first-year teacher. That's why I proposed that. I approach this as a full-time job because I spend many hours. People think all we do, you guys know differently. I don't have to sing to the choir here. Most people think the only thing we do is come to meetings twice a month and wave signs when we have something we're trying to get people to vote for. This is my full-time job. And so that's why I approach it with a full-time salary. And so anything less than a full-time teacher's salary, I see as an insult to the job that we do. And so I could not support anything less than a full-time teacher's salary because I look at what the job we do here is. And I'm sorry that you feel differently than that, but we have, as far back as 2007, 2008, been making the $38,290. And so I can support what FSBA recommends. I can support the first-year teacher salary, but to go with anything different, I believe is arbitrary. You need to have a measure that you're going to agree with. And, one of the things that I get frustrated with as a board member, and I've heard both of you guys say, is that the only time people pay attention to us is when it comes to taxes. When we're out there on the street, we're the equivalent of county commissioners when it comes to constitutional officers. But the dog catcher will get recognized before a school board member does. These people don't think of us out there. We do ourselves a disservice if we continue to, even in these determinations, lower our own credibility. Where do we draw that line at? What do you think your value is, John, in terms of a school board member? What is your value? I think what we do to educate children and the decisions we make here is every bit as important and valuable as our county commissioners. They're making $58,000, $59,000 over there. I'm not asking to make that. I'm asking to make $39,000. I don't have an office. I don't have a staff. My office is a laptop computer and a cell phone. I answer my own correspondence. I answer my own phone. I'm making $20,000 less than a county commissioner, and I don't think it's too much to ask for to make $39,000 a year. It is a full-time job. And so I think it should either be tied to what FSBA says, what the state constitution people have said that we should generate, or first-year teacher salary. And I think it is underrating what we do as school board members to say anything less. And that's my opinion.
Chair, can I respond?
Go ahead. Thank you for the history lesson. And I understand the history lesson. Again, that's past. No relevance to this whatsoever. And whether you think it is or not, it really doesn't matter. The law is what it is today, and we operate under that, not what was 10 years ago and what could have been and what might have been and why they did it. I look at it as not punishment. I look at it as a leadership opportunity. This is an opportunity to show the district exactly what you do as a board. Absolutely, I think everybody should argue their salary in front of the public. I think it's a great idea. So not a punishment whatsoever, nor do I really care how it came about. But to respond specifically to your question about what I think is the value of my time and me as a school board member, first of all, pay doesn't define my value. And if you're doing it for the pay and you think that pay defines your occupation, then I'd suggest that you maybe go find something else. I'm sorry, but that's a leadership thing. You know, pay does not define your occupation. You and what you do inside the position defines your leadership style and your occupation. Amy, I know you're shaking your head, but you just told me that you need to have that pay, and if we don't get that pay, it's a disservice to this position. That's not true. I'm sorry, it's not. And you know, if you feel that you're worth an extra $1,300 this year or whatever the increase is, that's fine. I'm giving my opinion that I truly do not believe that it is in the best interest of the board, that it is in the best interest of our teachers. We're talking about $6,000 to $7,000, and I don't know. I didn't put the wrap in there, so I'm not exactly sure how much really it is, because there's salary and then there's wrap as well. So there might be a little bit more, but that can fund quite a bit of things. I could fund the hippotherapy program at Milo that I visited for almost an entire year. I could fund school supplies at the school zone for multiple teachers. Yes, you say that it's arbitrary, but now we're moving the bar, and so when do we decouple it? Do we decouple it when it goes obviously above what hopefully we start paying our teachers even more? So what, then we go, okay, now we're not going to pay, obviously we can't legally, so we just take what the state gives us, or tells us that we're supposed to get. So tying it to a first-year teacher salary is kind of arbitrary as well. And certainly I think we made great progress. We were able to give a good compensation package to our teacher group this year. I don't think it's worth diminishing that by taking an increase ourselves. I think we wait for a year and we work through our strategic plan. We put a plan on the table that shows that we worked hard and that we know exactly where this district is going to go, using our leadership that we hired and our superintendent, and that's why I made the motion.
Mrs. Henderson, did you want to join in before I comment?
I actually agree with Amy. I think it needs to be tied to the teacher salary, or you need to do what the state is offering. I also agree, Mrs. Kneesy. I mean, this is my full-time job. I don't have 3 or 4 other jobs or retirements or anything else coming in that other people might have. But it's not really about the money. I just think that it needs to be either one or the other. To just pick a number out of a hat to make Mr. Craig or Mrs. Belford happy, it isn't going to work either. So I say you either do it with the teacher salary or go by the state. That's mine.
Thank you. And I'll give my two. Go ahead.
There has been a few decisions up here. You want to talk about $7,000 here or there, but there's been a few decisions by this board that has wasted way more than that.
To start off different. I'm going to start off and say fellow school board commissioners, because that's part of the point that Mrs. Kneesy was making, is we are equivalent to the commissioners in our authority level, which is a different area that we govern. And we have a constituency-based comparable. We have a staff much larger. We have, I personally think, a far nobler or more noble mission because we're serving kids. However, the state has slapped school boards down numerous times. They've done so even with legislation that they try to push through to totally eliminate school board salary and just pay, I think it was $100 per meeting is what they were proposing. So school board members have not been commissioners, I should say, and had been seen in the same light. And the issue is, personally, I don't, the amount to me, Mr. Craig, Ms. Belford, is irrelevant too, whether it's up or down 1,000 or whatever. But for us to join the legislators, slap ourselves down when technically for all rights we should have some of the same assistance that a county commissioner has, such as they have staff, they have an office. We run at a handicap, we run and having to do that all ourselves. Is it necessary for them to have all that staff? I don't know. Is it necessary for us to have a staff? I think we do pretty well the way that we're operating, although maybe it'd be nice to have offices in our... So that's a whole other conversation, but we are in all senses equivalent, but we keep getting held down, and then to knock ourselves down a little more, I don't think is respecting our profession. So, again, I don't care what the number is, but I don't think it should be an arbitrary number, which was Mrs. Henderson's point. I do think it should be a number tied to something relevant. And who knows, next year, the legislature may come back and set our salaries way below, cut it in half. Who knows what they're going to do. And then, maybe that's okay, maybe that's not. But at this point in time, I'd rather tie it to something relevant. And I would lean towards the first year's teacher, because I believe the sentiment that at that time, Mrs. Kneesy, correct me if I'm wrong, is we wanted to show teachers the respect that we don't feel we're of any more value than a first-year teacher. And I think that makes a very strong statement into itself. I don't believe a single board member up here was thinking in their mind that when we were discussing what we were going to give for raises to staff, that we were thinking about ourselves. And therefore, that's just a byproduct of what happened. The thing is, we're lowering. I think we're the only ones. I don't know of any other elected official that lowers their salary from what the state sets. In all honesty, though, the county commission is not receiving what the state sets. They are limited by the county charter. The county charter, though, doesn't govern the school district. We're autonomous to that, so they couldn't govern that. But again, we're the only ones that are lowering it, and I think it's the right thing to do, is to lower it to be no higher than a first-year teacher. The number where it falls, to me, is irrelevant, but we need to tie it to something that's measurable. Go ahead, Mrs. Kneesy.
First comment, if I said it was all about the money, it was never my intentions on that, John. So if I came across that way, my apologies for that.